Welcome to the greatest podcast in sports betting entertainment. My name is Tanner Kern, certified G, bona fide stud, and you can't teach that. In this right here, this is G Money Grant Mitchell. We are here breaking down the biggest storylines in the NFL, and you can't teach that. Bada boom, man of the people in the room. G Money Grant Mitchell, how you doing?
I'm doing better. As you know, I was sick a little bit over the weekend, so we had to miss out on Monday's recording. Apologies to everybody, but we're here. We're back. I'm doing better. And we got a lot to talk about because a lot went down in the NFL over the weekend. Probably the best week of football we've had so far.
Oh, it's been a great season so far. A lot of people are saying the games are boring, but it just keeps getting better and better week by week. We're getting great games. We had the Bills beat the Chiefs late. Josh Allen just dragging his you-know-what all over Patrick Mahomes' face. We had a lot of really cool things happen this weekend in the NFL, but that one stood out for me because it killed my teaser with the Chiefs and a live bet on the Chiefs.
It was also set up to be great primetime games. Well, primetime and marquee because Commanders-Eagles looked like a great game. You know, Bengals-Chargers was a great game. Cowboys-Texans looked like a great game until Dak got injured. But unfortunately, I think the Monday night game wasn't great. The Thursday night game, it was competitive. It wasn't great. But I agree, that Bills-Chiefs game, that had to be the highlight. But also, like, Bears-Packers was really fun, too.
Yeah, and shout out to the Bears because you almost beat the Packers, but you still came up short. It was pretty cool, too. We're going to talk about the game in a minute, but Matt LaFleur came out and said his special teams coordinator said the night before the game, if we don't block a kick tomorrow, I'll be shocked. And they found a way to block a kick in crunch time. So a lot of cool stuff happened in the NFL this weekend. Before we talk about all that, Grant, what do the people need to do?
Well, the people need to do two things. First of all, they need to hit the subscribe button because if they don't, Tanner and I are going to have to stop posting, and you don't want that. We don't want that. So hit the subscribe button. And number two, go to WSN.com. You know, we've got the NFL going on right now. We've got Ovechkin bearing down on the goal record in the NHL. We've got the NBA in-season tournament. And for all that stuff, you're going to find betting picks, game analysis previews, and also promo codes for the sports books to make it a more profitable betting experience. So hit the subscribe button, go to WSN.com, and that'll get you taken care of.
We also, you forgot to mention, we have Carson Beck, and I know you have someone in your life who's a Georgia Bulldog. Carson Beck absolutely dominated Tennessee. That was so fun to watch Carson Beck play well because since he dated the Cavender twin, he sucked.
Yeah, well, it wasn't. Georgia's offense was really bad. Like Beck led the nation in turnovers over the 6 weeks coming into the game. Georgia's receivers led all of P4 in drops. It's like nobody on offense was playing well. And to your point, you know, they go out there, they go down 10-0 at home. And then I think from that point on, they win 31-7 and they just stuck it to Tennessee.
Yeah, I think Georgia, if they play like they did in that game offensively, they easily could win the national championship. Because I needed that one for them to get in because I just took it on Georgia and they found a way to come through. So it was good. Now they're going to beat up on UMass, beat up on Georgia Tech, and coast into the college football playoff.
Did you see that UMass fired their coach just before they have to go play Georgia?
No, I didn't see that, but UMass has a tough stretch because they got to play Georgia and then they end the season in the Cum Bowl. You know what the Cum Bowl is, Grant?
Yes, I do. And it doesn't matter for you because UConn's already cashed the over, so you're riding free right now.
They're probably good. They're going to go 8-4 worst case. Could be 9-3 if they upset Syracuse this weekend, but it's been good. College football's been good, exciting. We're going to talk about that on the podcast moving forward too. But right now, we're talking about the rookie quarterbacks. And Grant, something's wrong with Caleb Williams. The guy is not good. I think it's the organization more than his talent, but he is the worst rookie quarterback right now. And that's a problem. If you're a Bears fan, that's a problem for people that's a problem for Caleb in general, because so many people are hating on him. Like when you conduct yourself, as we talked about off the field, as Caleb Williams did leading up into the draft process, people aren't going to like you in general. So if you don't perform, then, you know, the negative noise is really going to start coming in. So I don't know if he'll ever recover from this between the organization and just the negativity around him. It's going to be tough to become that guy in the NFL.
No, I'm with you. And Caleb has been a professional once he has gotten to the NFL. But like you said, in college and during the draft process and all that, he did seem a little diva-ish. You know, he wasn't. And with Hard Knocks, like you always like to say, walking in with the Michael Jordan stuff, like it was just a little bit over the top. So yes, he is I don't know if it's fair to call him the worst rookie quarterback. He's the worst rookie quarterback that's playing, right? Like we don't really know about Michael Penix Jr. We definitely don't know about JJ McCarthy because he's injured. Of the four that are on the field, yes, he has been the worst, and he has the best weapons around him. Maybe not the best coaching staff, maybe not the best offensive line. Maybe that would be Bo Nix, I guess. I don't really know who you would give it to there, but he is struggling, and I'm with you. It's the Bears franchise organizationally is just so bad. And he's really set himself behind the eight ball that, first of all, the Bears are going to have to nail their head coaching hire and their offensive coordinator hire, whoever those are going to be. And if they don't do that, even if they do, it's a tough road back for Caleb because people are right now saying, well, you should have drafted Jaden Daniels #1. I think there's a lot of people out there who would say Bo Nix is playing better than Caleb. Maybe you don't regret that because, Caleb has a lot more talent than Nix does, but still he's not producing. So I'm with you. It's a tough situation for him to be in and for him to come back from.
Well, for all the people looking back on it, like hindsight's 2020, seeing how well Jaden Daniels is playing, and honestly, when you look at their numbers, I saw a stat on Twitter, and this could be totally wrong, but are their numbers relatively similar in some aspects?
In some aspects, Jaden,
right?
Jaden, I think only has 9 or 10 passing touchdowns in 10 games. So, like from that perspective, yeah, it's not mind blowing stuff. It's a lot more about control of the offense, eye test stuff.
Yeah. So when you're looking at Caleb Williams, though, right now, he has a better quarterback rating than 3 quarterbacks of the NFL: Gardner Minshew, Will Levis, and Deshaun Watson. So he is a little better than those 3 guys. Obviously, one of them's not playing anymore. But when we look at the hindsight 2020 draft argument with Caleb Williams saying you should have taken Drake May, you should have taken Jaden Daniels, I can't sit here and say you should have taken Jaden Daniels. I can't sit here and say you should have taken Bo Nix. Like, you kind of had to take Caleb Williams. But between the organization and how he conducted himself, there were some red flags there. So Caleb Williams came into the best situation, but it also, you can make the argument it's the worst situation because now he's going to get his head coach fired. Eberflus is going to be gone, whether it's this year, next year, or the year after that. I can't see him winning. So it's going to be very hard, I think, for Caleb to take that next step as a quarterback. We look at Anthony Richardson. Like, he looked great this past weekend, pulled off a big win. But when we're looking at guys playing too early, it's a massive issue. When you're looking at Justin Fields, played too early and it didn't recover. Sam Darnold played too early. Now he's starting to come into his own a little bit. But we destroy these quarterbacks. I think Caleb Williams could easily, there's a better chance that he becomes one of those guys than he becomes a 10-year starter that wins a playoff game and, maybe takes his team to the NFC Championship.
So I 100% agree that the Bears should not be looking at Bo Nix or Drake May and saying we messed up. We should not have taken Caleb. The only one you make an argument for is probably Jaden because, he did win a Heisman. He did break records in college football, and he was totally dominant in the SEC. So that's the only guy you can make an argument for. But even still, Caleb was getting Patrick Mahomes comparisons beforehand. So if we go 3-4 years down the line and it doesn't pan out and he's a bust, I'm with you. It's still the right thing to do. One of the things I like to say is it's never the right time to do the wrong thing. And, if you draft JJ McCarthy and he comes in and gives you a couple solid years, okay, maybe just hypothetically, maybe it pans out better than what Caleb did. But Caleb's talent was so extraordinary and you knew what he could possibly be in the NFL that you did have to take the risk with him. Where I would disagree with you is where you were talking about how it's not fair to use hindsight. Well, we can't in hindsight look back and say this was actually a bad situation for Caleb to walk into. I understand coaching matters. It absolutely does. I would never say it doesn't. But when you have all of the weapons that he has, whether it be receiver, running back, and the offensive line has been criticized, the offensive line is in the top half in success rate for pass blocking. So it's been a solid offensive line. Caleb, we said, was stepping into the best situation for a #1 pick ever. It's not fair for us to look at it in hindsight and say, well, actually, he was set up to fail.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's becoming a successful quarterback in the NFL is so hard no matter what situation you walk into. You could walk into the greatest situation with the greatest coach. You could walk into the worst situation. Like, there's no guarantees that Patrick Mahomes doesn't sit for a year and learn. He becomes Patrick Mahomes, even if being in Kansas City. So it's hard to be a rookie quarterback in the NFL. Most of them fail. More times than not, a first-round pick will fail. So with that being said, Caleb Williams, if he does fail, it shouldn't necessarily come as a surprise because that's just the way it is. And when you're compared to Patrick Mahomes coming out of college, when you're compared to all these great quarterbacks, that sets you up to fail because you're not going to live up to that. There's no chance you live up to Patrick Mahomes because Patrick Mahomes is elite.
And I will say, as bad as Caleb has been, because he has been bad. You know, he had a 3-week stretch where he was good. One of those weeks, it was like more than anything, it was just like, okay, we're seeing the turn maybe, and then the other 2 weeks were good. But some of these drives late in the game against the Commanders, he was awesome in the fourth quarter. You know, against the Packers, he drove down the field, got them in position to win. You see it, and you do see it show up in important moments. It's just for so much of the game, they look totally disjointed and disconnected. And despite those winning moments, they're not winning games. That's where the big issue lies.
Yeah, and it's not all on him too. Again, it's not his fault that a kick got blocked that should have went through the uprights. When you're looking at this team, they started 4-2. We weren't talking about Caleb Williams being a bust after starting 4-2, but since they've lost 4 straight games, we're starting to talk about Caleb Williams being a bust. So if they find a way to win against the Packers last week and Caleb plays the exact same way, you're going to grade him better than how it worked out when they lost the game. So winning changes everything for these quarterbacks.
What did you say Caleb was in QBR? What was his ranking?
He's third to last, fourth to last.
It's like 28, 29, something like that.
Yeah, that's probably not all qualified quarterbacks though either.
So just to kind of put this in perspective as well, because Caleb's also a victim of circumstance. When you go number 1 overall, the expectations are a lot higher, right? Who's the rookie quarterback we're talking about right now? It's actually not Jayden Daniels. It's Bo Nix. Bo Nix is the talk of the town because he had, 4 touchdowns against the Falcons. People are saying, oh, is he actually rookie of the year? Bo Nix is 21st in QBR. Caleb's 28th, 29th, whatever it is. Not that far apart. And then if we look at an advanced metric, if we look at EPA per play, and we're looking at these two quarterbacks, Caleb and the Bears are 23rd. Bo Nix and the Broncos are 22nd. So like they've been somewhat equivalent as far as their actual efficiency, but the expectations were so much higher for Caleb. Plus, we thought he was walking into a much better situation that when Bo Nix produces about the same level of performance, even a little bit better, it looks significantly better for him than it does for Caleb.
Yeah. And also too, moving into the rookie of the year conversation, offensive rookie of the year for the NFL, Jayden Daniels should be the rookie of the year hands down. And he is in the betting markets, but you got guys on ESPN, Dan Orlovsky, I heard the other day talking about why Bo Nix should be the rookie of the year. ESPN saying Bo Nix has a chance to win rookie of the year. Realistically, when you look at these two teams, Jayden Daniels has the Washington Commanders at 7-4 right now. The Denver Broncos are 6-5. When you look at the QBR for Jayden Daniels, he is 5th in the NFL. Bo Nix is 21st. Bo Nix has thrown more picks. He has thrown more touchdowns, but you can make the argument Jayden Daniels has been a much better running quarterback. So when you look at it all, Jayden Daniels should still easily be the hands down favorite of the rookie of the year. ESPN should not be having the conversation unless they're trying to put programming together that Bo Nix is the rookie of the year. But since the Commanders have dropped 2 games now in a row, you make the argument that the team winning is that has the rookie of the year on it with Bo Nix. But even though Jayden Daniels has lost 2 games in a row, they are still he's still the much better candidate for rookie of the year. It's not even an argument, in my opinion.
No, it's not. I mean, Jayden Daniels was either the MVP front runner or top 3 for like the first 8 weeks of the season. I understand that Bo Nix in his last game was better than Jayden was for the last 2 weeks. That doesn't overturn what we've seen through the first 2 months of the season. Jayden is significantly better. Bo Nix has already exceeded my expectations. I want to make that clear. He's already exceeded them. I thought he was going to come in and just be a big nothing. That's what I thought he was, because when he was at Oregon, he had played more snaps than anybody in the history of college football. The deck was stacked for him. I was like, and he still, what he did wasn't even that incredible. It was like he was throwing the ball as quickly as he could, and then Oregon's playmakers were doing everything for him. So he's been better than what I thought he would be, but I still don't know if he's actually good or not. He's made some very good plays, don't get me wrong, but he's also not being asked to do much of anything. It's a lot of play action, a lot of quick stuff. There's not a whole lot of decision making for him to do. And on one hand, that's good coaching. You're protecting your rookie. On another, is it an indictment of Bo Nix's ability? Is it an indictment of his ceiling? I really don't know. The bottom line is, if you watch the games, you watch the film, you watch the highlights, whatever, Jayden Daniels is clearly better. He was not good these last couple of weeks, and this actually transitions to something else I wanted to bring to you, which we know Jaden suffered that rib injury, right? It was against the Panthers on the first drive. And pretty much ever since that point, he's looked like a different player. His accuracy just has not been there. His sharpness hasn't been there. I was listening to Dan Quinn's interview yesterday, and he said, as soon as he sat down, he said, I want to make this very clear. Jaden Daniels is not injured. So I don't understand how you can say that when we can see the drop off in production and between every series on the sideline. He lifts his arms up, they come over and they wrap the stuff around his ribs. So like, what is it? I think he probably was injured. And now that they've had the 10 days off, they're anticipating he won't be. But I still think it's pretty obvious rib injury, production falls off.
Yeah. And maybe that's just Dan Quinn not knowing the right thing to say. If you come out and say he's injured, and then you're going to be open to a slew of questions from the media about it. So he probably wanted to shut those down right away before he even got them. But you got to know he's playing through pain. You're not putting a heating pad on your ribs between every series unless you're in pain in some way. So he's definitely injured in some regard. But another thing I want to talk about too, these award markets fluctuate too much off one performance. Yep. Josh Allen comes in, beats Patrick Mahomes, plays really good, but now he is the favorite to win MVP. When you look at the stats, though, Lamar, 25 passing touchdowns. Josh Allen has 18. Lamar's got 2 rushing touchdowns. Josh Allen has 5. So he has the edge there, but Lamar's got way more yards running the football. Josh Allen, 5 picks. Lamar Jackson, 3 picks. Josh Allen, 4th in QBR. Lamar is 2nd in QBR. And then Lamar has also thrown for 300 more yards. So just because Josh Allen walks in and beats the Bills and Lamar doesn't have a great game against the Steelers, or beats the Chiefs and Lamar doesn't have a great game against the Steelers, does that mean that Josh Allen's now the favorite to win MVP? Like, these awards shift too much.
I'm with you on that. And I think Josh Allen's a rightful number 2. And I'm not saying he should be, miles behind, but I would put him at like +3, +4, maybe. I think this is still Lamar's award to win. I'm with you. You laid out all of the stats. To break it down simply, Lamar's on pace for almost 1,000 yards rushing, and he's 2nd in the NFL in passing yards, 2nd in passing touchdowns. They wanted him to run wide receiver routes at the combine. And then we heard, you remember when like 3-4 years ago, a scout or a GM, whoever it was, said he's not quarterbacky enough. He's a running back. He has been one of the 2 or 3 best throwers of the football in the NFL, and he's been exceptional running the ball. So yes, his team has not beaten, they didn't beat the Chiefs like the Bills did. Well, what happened in that game? He had 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, 400 yards of total offense. Against the Browns, he had 350 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. That was the game where I think it was Bateman dropped that crazy pass in the middle of the field in the 4th quarter. And then, yeah, he wasn't good against the Steelers. That was his first bad game since week 2. Josh Allen deserves tremendous credit for beating the Chiefs, but the Bills were favored. They were 2.5-point favorites at home. That was supposed to happen. We don't think it was because we know what we think of the Chiefs, but that's what was expected to happen. So I'm with you. Too much fluctuation. Jared Goff went from +450 to +3,000 to +600 in the matter of 2 weeks.
Yeah, one game should not change the MVP market that much. And like Josh Allen, too, he's 4-1 against Patrick Mahomes in the regular season. He can't beat him in the postseason. Same thing with Lamar. Neither of them can win the postseason. So if neither of them are going to beat Patrick Mahomes in the postseason, you got to go with the guy who's got the better stats. Pretty even teams right now. The Bills do have a better record than the Ravens. But Lamar is hands down my favorite to win the MVP. And also, too, same thing with Coach of the Year. We were talking about this before we came on. Dan Quinn right now is no longer the favorite to win Coach of the Year, which is not crazy because there's other coaches that are stepping up. Mike Tomlin, Dan Campbell, Jim Harbaugh, Jonathan Gannon, and Kevin O'Connell are all ahead of him now. At one point, Dan Campbell was like 2-1 to win the award. But since they lose Dan Quinn was 2-1 to win the award. But since they lose 2 games, he's now to +850. But you got Mike Tomlin with the Steelers, who they were supposed to be good. Dan Campbell with the Lions, they were supposed to be good. Jim Harbaugh's Chargers. I mean, he's done a good job changing that culture, but he's also an previous NFL head coach. Jonathan Gannon, you can make the argument there. Kevin O'Connell, you can make the argument with Sam Darnold. But Dan Quinn has done more out of nowhere than all these guys.
Yeah, and focusing on Jim Harbaugh specifically, as soon as he left Michigan and he came back to the NFL, he had the highest win percentage amongst all active NFL coaches. And the Chargers did underperform, no doubt, but they had Justin Herbert, if you look at their roster on paper only, you would say this is a top 5 defense. So Harbaugh did come in and turn things around, but it is a guy that's, been to a Super Bowl, a guy that has found tremendous success everywhere he's been. I'm with you. I'm not saying Dan Quinn should be the favorite right now, but he should be top 2, top 3 at absolute worst. I think it's the Dans. I think it's Dan Quinn and Dan Campbell should be the top 2.
Yeah, and then for Dan Campbell, he's coach of the year, but he also went to the NFC Championship game last year, and he's a couple plays away from dumb coaching decisions too, from going to the Super Bowl. So it's definitely interesting how these awards shift, but don't be fooled. I think if you're looking at from a betting perspective to say like Dan Quinn's no longer a good bet at plus 850, I think he's a great bet at plus 850 right now. Lamar is still a good bet at plus 200 because at one point he was plus 180. Now he's plus 200. And just because like Josh Allen shouldn't be plus 125. That's crazy. So there's a lot of bets right now. They're still on the board that you're getting a lot of good value with these swings. Like last year, when it came to the Super Bowl, when Chiefs hit that down streak late in the season, I got them for 6-1 to win the Super Bowl with like 5-6 weeks to go in the year. That's crazy because they were never that until they hit that losing streak, but they were still the Chiefs.
Going back to Dan Quinn here, because I think there is, if you're out there listening and you want to bet on Coach of the Year, I think it's still a great bet on him because this is the Commanders' upcoming schedule. They've got the Cowboys, who look horrendous, the Titans, who are awful, the Saints, who are awful, the Eagles, which is a tough game, but don't let that final score fool you. That was a 2-point game halfway through the fourth quarter. They've got the Eagles at home. They've got the Falcons at home, and they finished their season with the Cowboys. That's a very easy schedule. Washington, how many games is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Washington could go 5-1. And at that point, they're 12-5 for a team that just picked second in the draft. How is that not Coach of the Year?
I don't know. I think it is Coach of the Year when I look at it. Grant, what else are we talking about today?
Well, I mean, we got we got a lot. I mean, we talked about Caleb, we talked about the rookie quarterbacks, we talked about some college stuff. I don't know. Where do you want to take it?
I think the last subject we got to talk about here, San Francisco 49ers to be plus 168 to make the playoffs. That NFC playoff picture is getting pretty crazy right now. You look at the 3 bubble teams right now: Rams 5-5, Seahawks 5-5, 49ers 5-5. The 3 wild card teams right now, you get the Vikings, Packers, and Commanders. Worst record there, 7-4. So there's only going to be one NFC West team in the playoffs, most likely, and that team right now is the Arizona Cardinals at 6-4. Do you think San Francisco at plus 168 to make the playoffs is a good bet, knowing they're one game behind the Arizona Cardinals?
Well, it is important to say they have the tiebreaker right now. Obviously, they're going to play again, and they actually play in the final week of the season. So it's very possible that we get to week 18 and the winner of 49ers Cardinals wins the division and the loser misses the playoffs. San Francisco is 5-5 right now. Their upcoming schedule, they are at the Packers, at the Bills. That's brutal. They're home for the Bears, home for the Rams. Easier, but not easy, at the Dolphins, Lions, at the Cardinals. That is brutal. A very, very tough schedule.
Meanwhile, Cardinals have Seahawks, Vikings, Seahawks, Patriots, Panthers, Rams, 49ers. So they have an easier stretch for sure.
Well, I'm guessing, the Rams have an easier stretch. I'm guessing the Seahawks have an easier stretch. And right now, San Francisco's last in the division. You know what? I'll say it. The Niners are missing the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, if you like the Niners to make the playoffs, do not take them to make the playoffs. Take them to win the NFC West, because they're plus 290 to win the West right now. When you look at to make the playoffs, they're plus 168. So I don't want to say they're not going to make the playoffs, because I still think they're one of the best teams in the NFC. They're much better than the Cardinals, even though the Cardinals are playing a dog water schedule. I think they're not going to catch the Vikings. They could catch the Packers. You never know. At 7-3, they got the head-to-head game there. But when you're looking at their schedule, they have to. If you think they're going to make the playoffs or win the division, you got to beat the Packers. You need to beat the Bills. You really can only afford to lose to the Lions, I would say. You kind of need to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You need to go 6-1. 5-2 probably gets you in still, but 6-1 realistically with a win over the Cardinals is what you need to do.
It's crazy to me that Washington is the final wild card team. They were 7-2, and then they lost 2 games in 4 days, and now they're the 7 seed. Like, that's crazy.
Now, when you look at the NFC, Grant, how many teams do you think can realistically win the Super Bowl? Because if I'm looking at it right now, I would say the Lions are the only team that can win the Super Bowl. Potentially the Eagles, but when I look at the difference in play between the Lions and the Eagles, it's massive. Detroit is a much better team. They're a much more connected team. And I don't see Philadelphia beating them one bit.
No, I'm with you. I think exactly what you said there. I think there's 2. I think it's the Lions. I think it's the Eagles. I think the Eagles, whoever they play, I don't know. Like, I'm just speaking very generally here. I think the Eagles have roughly, if they get to the Super Bowl, let's say a 15 to 20% chance. I think the Lions are in a coin flip, maybe even favored over whoever comes out of the AFC. I think they are so far ahead of everybody in the NFC, it's not even close. Now, I will say, Dan Campbell, as much as I love the guy, needs to stop screwing around with fate. There's no reason to be having your starters in halfway through the fourth quarter up by 45 points at home against the Jaguars. Did we forget what happened with Sam Laporta last year? You were blowing a team out, had your starters in. He gets hurt in the fourth quarter. You got lucky that he came back for the playoffs. He only missed like a month of time or whatever it was. But you're tempting fate here. You already lost Aiden Hutchinson. What happens if David Montgomery or Jahmyr Gibbs or Amon-Ra St. Brown goes down? What if Jared Goff gets hit late by some guy who doesn't get normally isn't on the field and he's trying to make a name for himself? Dan Campbell's got to control his ego. That's all I'm going to say. The Lions are clearly the best, but I do worry about them. And from the perspective, they're emptying the tank. They're running hook and ladders and they're doing all these trick plays and everything. Save it. One of the things that makes Andy Reid and Bill Belichick and these coaches so great is every year they get to the Super Bowl and they show you something they haven't shown you before. I bet Detroit does have more up its sleeve, but it's still digging into plays it doesn't need. You could just run inside zone and you would overpower the Jaguars. You've got the best offensive line in the league. You've got the second or third best running game. They're down 40 points. Just run it up the gut every time. Don't pull out these trick plays.
No, I totally agree with you on that. Like Andy Reid's play call, and I know it didn't matter, but it came at a crucial time. Where the offensive tackle ran the quick little hitch route there and call it, like, that was awesome. Like, it's stuff that you don't see. But Dan Campbell, it's like when they're calling these trick plays, they're almost showing off. They're in no need of the game. Like, it's not needed one bit. They're just trying to run up the score a little bit, which I like how connected they are as a team, and I do think they are clearly the winner of the NFC right now. But
I saw a tweet the other day that said, what's the difference between what the Lions are doing and the Cowboys did? And they said the Cowboys got crucified for showing off, stomping these terrible teams, but they didn't win meaningful games. And I think the Lions, they're not at that level because Dallas was like straight up chokers. Anytime they got in prime time or they got against a big opponent, they lost and they lost convincingly. That's not happening to Detroit. But I will say, they definitely are stat padding. They're inflating what we think of them because they're annihilating these bad teams.
Yeah, like they're covering like 13-point spread last week, one of the biggest we're going to see during a season. They covered it with these, and it was never in any doubt. So I think they look good right now. I still think you got to give the nod to the Chiefs because the Chiefs are the Chiefs. And if they did meet the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, I would put the Chiefs as a 1-point favorite over the Lions. But other than that, I think Detroit's favored over anyone coming out of the AFC.
You know what we still have to talk about here, Tanner? We have to talk about Daniel Jones.
Yep, Daniel Jones. He made $108 million as a Giant.
Hell of a career, for a guy to get drafted that high, make that much money, win a playoff game, be the face of a franchise in, one of the biggest cities on earth without being able to throw a football. It's a remarkable job by Daniel Jones.
I don't get why everyone's literally taking a dump on the man though. Like he was not probably a first round quarterback or not a top tier quarterback pick. He did everything he could do. He conducted himself in the right way. He's not a good quarterback though. We get that, but he conducted himself in the right way. He was never an a-hole. He shut up. He did his job.
I don't really know that I've ever heard him speak.
It's not. Yeah, I haven't really either. It's not his fault that the organization decided to pay him over Saquon. So what are you going to do? Like, I don't know why everyone's complaining so much. And honestly, they should, like, people saying he should pay the money back. Like, people making jokes on social and stuff. It's like the man did everything right. You guys haven't been good, not only because of Daniel Jones, maybe because of the rotating door of coaches that have come through that building since he's been there.
And I will say, I like Dable. I think Dable can be the guy. He was huge in helping Josh Allen develop. He won Coach of the Year when he got to the Giants. They won either 10 or 11 games. They won the playoff game. He won Coach of the Year with Daniel Jones as his quarterback. So I understand that a lot of the times when comes down to, do you fire the coach, the quarterback? You do fire the coach. I think it's the right decision here to keep him. Everybody knows Daniel Jones isn't a starting caliber quarterback. And to everybody wondering why he's third string instead of second string, it makes sense. If he gets injured, you got to pay him more money. You can save $19 million against your cap if you cut him in the offseason. Obviously, they're going to try to trade him. Maybe the Cowboys are going to give you a second-round pick for him because they just love giving up picks for people they don't use. But it's the right thing to do. The Giants need to move on. They got their receiver of the future, and I guess you can bring in a young quarterback to replace him or replace Daniel Jones and build that connection with Malik Neighbors. My thought, though, is – obviously they weren't going to draft a quarterback last year because they did have Daniel Jones. But if we knew what we know now back then, like who's in this upcoming draft, you're probably not going to get Shedeur. I guess it's possible, but I don't think it's going to happen. After that, it's Carson Beck, Jackson Dart, Dylan Gabriel, Cam Ward, right? Are those guys better than Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix Jr., Drake May, Bo Nix? I don't think so. So it's like, yet again, the Giants just always seem to be behind the 8 ball. And if they had come to this realization 1 year quicker, then they could have set themselves up to be in a better spot. And you know what? Maybe there's a world in which you keep Saquon around, but it didn't end up happening.
No. And, I think Daniel Jones can be a good quarterback somewhere else in the right situation. If Sam Darnold could do it with the Vikings, and Sam Darnold is not as good as I think everyone thought he was early in the year. But if he can do it, I believe Daniel Jones can do it in the right situation. New York just wasn't the right situation for him. But credit to him. He did more than a lot of people are going to do. $108 million, won a playoff game, played some good football along the way, played some really bad football along the way. But he probably did more for a franchise than a lot of first round picks will ever do. And that's not the standard in New York.
I agree. I mean, he was there for, is it like 6 years now?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, most quarterbacks don't make it that far. You know what the funniest possible scenario is here?
What?
He goes to the Jets.
I could see it too as a bridge year. Like he's a good bridge quarterback for somebody that isn't in the market to get Shedeur, but needs a quarterback. And the Giants are going to take on a lot of the money too of that contract if they trade him. So you're probably going to get a good deal.
It would be so Jets of them to make that move. Do we even know if Aaron Rodgers, I know he said he plans on coming back, but did the Jets want him back next year?
They need to start rebuilding. He can't come back. And he's not playing terrible. Like we gotta throw that on
pretty
table.
Bad.
He's pretty bad, but he's got better numbers than the quarterbacks that came before him. He's not better winning percentage, but he's not terrible.
Okay, so can I actually push back on this a little?
Am I wrong about that? Am I wrong? Did I just make that up?
No, I mean, you didn't make that up, but you know how there have been some Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers comparisons?
Yeah.
And so we know what we think of Brett Favre's time as a Jet. So Brett Favre as a Jet, 0.06 EPA per dropback. Rodgers is negative 0.03. Favre had a 49% success rate. Rodgers has a 41. Favre had 6.2 yards per attempt. Rodgers has 5.9. So like, yeah, he's not been the worst quarterback in the league, but he's fallen off of a cliff. He's 23rd in QBR. Yeah, he's 11th in passing yards. He's got 7. He's tied for 7th in passing touchdowns, but he also hasn't had a bye week yet. So you got to think about that. Like most of his stuff, when you watch him play, like it's his problem is, you know how they say great players when they get older, they can be great in moments, not all the time. He's kind of got that to the extreme. Like you'll get a good or great quarter from him in a game, but the rest of the time he's just checking it down to Breece Hall or he's missing open throws.
He's not the reason the Jets are bad, though. Like, I want to throw it on it. He's not the reason the Jets are a terrible football team.
No, but I mean, like his QBRs in the last 2 weeks, 37 against the Colts, 24 against the Cardinals.
Yeah, no, he's not been good. And it's really they're not stretching the ball down the field. I don't think he can be the quarterback next year. If he should probably retire if he is not the quarterback of the New York Jets and just call it a career. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. He's still not the reason this team's bad. This team's just cursed.
Yeah, them and the Bears, it's organizational ineptitude. They never put the team in place to succeed.
So wait, right now, what was their win total at? It was 10.5, I think, or it was 9.5 at the low point.
It was 9.5 for the most part. It went up to 10.5 for a little bit.
So they can't hit. The under officially hit.
Yeah.
They're
what? They're
9 and 8.
3 and 8.
9 and 8 best case right now. So the under smacked.
I mean, 9 and 8 is not happening. They're going to lose to the Bills. They're going to lose to the Rams. They're going to lose at least one of the Miami games.
Yeah, they're done. They're done. But we're done too, Grant. Podcast over. Good day.
It was a good day. And we appreciate each and every one of you joining us. So make sure you do hit the subscribe button like we said at the start.
All right, Grant. Take us out of here.
That's going to do it for this episode of Ride the Line. Like I said many times by now, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button if you did enjoy, and make sure you check out WSN.com for everything related to sports betting. Tanner and I will catch you all in the next episode of Ride the Line.